Benny. The tall one with the bald patch is Benny. The great farmers, Barbie, Nicky and Karen on the right. Wolfie Emden. Bella, Shirley.
An accountant.
It's a good profession.
Yeah.
Why did you go and play around with bloody stupid things like this?
Okay. So next day.
Okay. It's probably stupid.
No, today it's in. They're beautiful clothes. Down here, these sushi plates. Stop. These sushi plates. Keep the design.
Sushi plates. That would look the same.
Hang on, stop. I'm going to hold these.
It's fine, you put them around.
And inside the... Will you hold them up and show us all, Uncle Arne?
Well, you want to do them individually, so then I'll tell me how long you want to take this to.
Okay. Okay.
Are you recording the sound?
Yes.
This is also, I do quite a lot of these ovals and oblongs. The method I use is simply to throw a ring without a base, shape it and attach it to a prepared little slab. There are other ways of doing it, but that's the way I favour anyway. I do quite a lot of these oblongs and ovals, like this one here. Same sort of thing, a ring without a base, shaped, and then you've got to shape it in the right state when it's just firm enough to hold after being thrown. Then when it's a little stiffer, just attaching it to the slab. But you're going to get the sticker off. Not quite nicely, as you saw on the other two dishes. With the white glaze simply trailed over it. Completely simple, that's the way I like it. I've got a few different silicon glazes. This one is designed to fire at a much lower temperature, and I've got one which is more an opaque type, from which I've developed the others, and then there's another one which takes a much higher temperature. But that you will see, I've noted these down in that article for the Ceramics Monthly. And then we've also got something on the back of them. I like to sometimes decorate inside the footwear.
Okay.
Another very simple celadon, celadon with a very simple decoration, which I rather like. Unfortunately, some of my customers also like it. They all wanted to get this little bow, but I've kept it for an exhibition. That okay for the angle?
Down a little bit. There we go.
Down.
Can you put your hand next to it so you can get some idea of the size?
Get some. Do you want the other one in with it, or do you get it on its own?
No, I'll get it on its own.
Okay.
There you go. Oops.
Pardon?
You can start again.
This is one of my celadons which handles the iron pigment very well. So I've done the decoration on this glaze with the wax patterning, and then I've simply brushed an iron oxide pigment over the lot. And this pigment is just, actually it comes from the leach pottery of about 40 years ago. It's just a mixture of iron oxide, red clay and porcelain body. This one. Anyway.
They remind me of
these
Namibia.
two, how do you want them? This angle?
Down a bit more.
Or do you want them in that light here? Slightly broader so-called sushi dishes. And Shirley, just hang on to this one.
Yeah.
This one I've concocted a little story. Do you know the story of the Little Prince? Saint Exupéry's little story about the Little Prince, you know it? Where he's sitting on his little planet, gazing out. And I think of the Little Prince sitting just there and gazing over his little planet into the void. So that's one of my favorite ones I've done today. Do quite a lot around this style of thing. We prepare our own clay in rather primitive fashion. We crush up our clay, which we get dry from a nearby quarry. It's a pipe clay, which is fine for the stoneware which I am doing. And it goes into this tank. I think we should get no ice doing the whole thing. Don't you think so? She does a lot of it. No ice. Because I do it or no ice. She does a lot of my clay work. Most of my clay work is done by my assistant, Namagila. And his wife comes down 2 days a week to help us with whatever we need. Come on, banana. Grady sieve, Namagila. Grady sieve. Bring 80 sieve. So we crush up the clay into the tank here. Ice helps us, or Namagila does it. We then plunge it here, stir it up, in other words, and then we sieve it into one of the other tanks, which Namagila will do for you in a moment. Play your Emma. Okay, once it's stirred, Now McGill sieves it into the neighbouring tanks. Okay. And then we siphon off the water and we pour it onto our drying tables, which at the moment is plaster of Paris. Not the ideal thing, but it works quite well for us. All this is quite as I say, fairly primitive, but in actual fact you get the best plasticity out of your clay by doing it this way. Most people nowadays simply buy from a supplier, but we like to get it going from the start. And I'll show you what we do the other side. Have you got it on?
Yeah.
We'd be the despair of any time and motion study guys, the way we operate, but we bring the clay from those tanks rather laboriously and we pour it on these plaster of Paris tables, which then, if they're dry enough, it comes off the same day, and then we take it over to our pug mill, which is over there. Well, I got that a few years ago. Otherwise, all the clay is automatically, braised Afrikaans, kneaded for use. So once it's taken off the bats, there we've got in a little heap there, and from there we let it stiffen a bit, and then it goes through our plug mill there, and then it's ready for use. But now McGill still insists on needing it anyway, so I don't know what the hell the plug mill is why it's necessary, but anyway, we operate it. It does help. It de-airs it to quite an extent, and even if he needs it afterwards, it's still okay. Give it that extra little homogeneousness. What's homogeneous? Not homogeneousness. What's the word? The noun for being homogeneous. Anyway, you can let. Okay.
Who influenced? Oh, it's done.
Yeah.
Who influenced you during your early work? Who,
Yeah.
if anyone?
Now you got that on.
Yeah.
So I see you just have to talk.
Loudly.
Well, once I got going, once I got on to the idea of doing pottery and joining an evening class, I was influenced by a chap, Michael Gill, who gave me advice of where to go and what to do. But my first real activity in the learning process came in St. Ives with a chap, Kenneth Quick, who had been working for 11 years in the famous Leach pottery. St. Ives is synonymous with Bernard Leach, who was the big guru of the 20th century craft pottery movement. And so I learned there for 6 months, and later on I kept plugging away, and later on before I came to Eagle's Nest, I spent 6 months with Esius Bosch in White River, where he was just setting up his stoneware enterprise, and I think that I learned most then. I was very much influenced by him, by his work and his attitudes and so on. And then later on, after I've been here a few years, I went to spend 6 months called Michael Cardew, also one of the leading potters of the century in Cornwall. But also there's a whole sort of little group with the influence I've taken, which is to an extent also imbued with Oriental attitudes, Chap Hamada, but basically the Hamada, Leach, Cardew and Bosch to a certain extent were my main influences.
And has your style and product changed over the years?
Well, it inevitably moves a little bit. It doesn't change dramatically. I'm not interested in following any of the fashions, dramatic changes. The changes come quite naturally and maybe imperceptibly, but one is operating in so many different aspects of the craft, whether it's your glaze or your throwing or your kiln firing. You don't have any, if you're really hard at it, you don't have time to deviate a hell of a lot. So the changes in each little department do come slowly and quite naturally, but they are there.
And are you involved in any publications or planning any publications?
I never plan any of these publications. Occasionally there are magazines who are hard up to fill up their space, and they might think, here's a fitting victim, or else like the Ceramic Review. I got excited with my little sushi, so I sent them a few photographs, but they later on wanted proper slides and an article. I didn't try very hard, but they were very happy to publish it, and it's a New Zealand potter wrote the other day. He said that a lot of his American friends tried very hard to get into that magazine. Never mind getting on the cover, but they never get into it. So I don't really look for it, but these things do come along, and one has to just, whether you like the article or not, that's the exposure one needs to carry on. You do need a bit of publicity, but I don't seek it. It somehow comes in a normal way, and that's okay.
And can you tell us anything about local pottery talent?
Oh, there's some pretty good local pottery talents. They're not necessarily all in the field that I'm working in lots of divergent fields, but there's a lot of work going on all around. There are about 500 potters in the Cape alone, but one of the better ones lives quite close by. He's working on quite a big scale, doing the sort of things that I do, but also making very, very big garden pots, that sort of thing. And I think he helps me with my firings now. He'll be one of our better potters pretty soon. So there's lots of good stuff going around. And I had a letter just yesterday from a potter who potted in Natal. He's been successfully potting in England for quite a long time. He wants to come back, and I think he wants to come and work in Cape Town. So, you know, the sunshine and the beauty of our little scene attracts a lot of people. A lot of potters work in the country, around Franschhoek and places like that. So that is a definite attraction for people.
Your style, you told, publications, and what can you tell you about that? That's already asked.
Yes, well, I'll just make a note about apprentices.
Okay, well, we'll do it now.
Yeah.
It's going.
Just a note about apprentices. Never really worked on an apprentice system because I don't consider myself a master. But in any case, over the past, I've had one or two young guys who have worked here for a spell, but it didn't work out terribly well for either of us. But I have my assistant here, Nabigila Kokani. We have worked together for over 20 years. His wife comes in for a few days a week if we are busy, and she works for us at home too. It's quite a nice little setup, and his little youngster goes to a good school nearby. So but from the apprentice point of view, it doesn't really work for me, and I'm very happy just to be working with Namigila, and that's that. Strangely enough.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things inside the room here too.
This colour was beautiful.
Is there anything you can tell us about this one?
Well, this is just a progression from my little sushis. It's a style of decoration which to an extent I used to do when I started here, but I'm also influenced in this style of work by Mark Rothko, a very famous American painter. And you know, to an extent I look at his work, but then I sort of gradually move away from it myself. So there is a definite Rothko influence in some of the things, some of my sushis, quite definitely. I would like to call them Rothko, which is the combination of Rothko and Rabinowitz, but unfortunately Rothko's original name was Rothkowitz. Do you want me to hold the other one? Below, how's that?
Yeah, that's fine.
From this angle you can see it without any glare, you know.
Yeah.
It reminds me of that landscape stone you get from...
Decorated that way, and it is sold to a guy who goes down to the Macron Transfer.
You know what it, yeah.
For the flowers, quite
This
regular.
is just like it though. Is that what we're sort of...
No, not that, I just, in fact, I can see.
It's like the pan. This is what the pan looks, salt pan looks like. Exactly what the salt pan in a cluster looks like. And then you get your mirage in colours.
Yeah, well, I should narrow down this area could have been something like that. Anyway, I showed you them yesterday. The other day. The other two. Wonder what this is. Looks like a little leaf. I know, it's part of the decoration. Maybe I should just remove this for you for a moment.
These are some of the McGilly's work. Hyme's assistant.
And some over there too. And some of it is stuff that I just want to refire.
A view of the kiln.
These are nice little planters which are
Background.
working quite well.
The entrance.
Now
Straight ahead.
Some seconding
Ah.
yeah, we can work on that. 25 cubic foot gas kiln, which I used to use intermittently, but now I think the big kiln doesn't give me enough continuity, so I'm going to use this one more frequently. I've got used to it now, and it gives very good reduction, if you know what the reduction is about. It fires my cylinders. The cylinders are much better results than in the other oil kiln, but in the oil kiln there are glazes which we call tomokos. They have a high iron content. They fire better in the oil kiln, but I think I'm going to, and they're a bit flat in this gas kiln, but I've got to work on that and try and get it right. So that's just the old gas, which is quite handy for us now. We can get you to firing fairly quickly, and I'll just take you to the oil kiln over here. This started off as a wood-fired kiln on the model of Michael Cardew's kiln, which he had built at Wienburg Bridge in Cornwall, and then subsequently in Nigeria at his Abuja Pottery Training Centre. And Bosch studied there for a while with him and came back with a design, and I got it from Bosch, so I put up this wood kiln there, which I had for a few years, but when firings went wrong, it was just too much of a strain. It was, in fact, it really pushed me to the ground. So in the end, I reconverted it to oil, square oil kiln. The previous one was a round wood-fired kiln, with 4 fireboxes for stoking. Here I've got the square kiln and 5 boxes, and we bring the burners down to each one, and it gives quite an even firing. 180 cubic feet roughly. Can you go inside now?
Yeah, we can
and
go
it's got
inside.
a lovely dome. It was nice building the dome. pounds a year with this kiln, but with advancing years and diminished energy, I don't get to more than about 1 or 2 now. So, in fact, it suits me to work a lot more with the gas kiln.
Hang on. Okay.
Some potters have a once firing, in other words, they raw glaze and then they fire it. Cardi does it that way, and I was working at his place, handled it a little bit that way. But I prefer to do a bisque firing first and then to glaze and fire. Also, I think with the limited space, it's easier to do work with the bisque, through a bisque and then a glaze. And also, I think it's more difficult to get it an interesting, attractive raw glaze. The glazes I have developed myself. It's quite simple to buy ready-made glazes, but I've never wanted to work that way. And from the start, I've developed my own glazes, and some of them aren't too bad. In fact, I was doing it in my spare time before I came here in 1962, and from the glaze that I developed there, that has been the basis of most of the glazes that I've worked on here. And all the time I'm experimenting and checking on whether I can't improve the existing glazes. So, in fact, if you take a little picture on the table, you see quite a lot of buckets which are the experimental glazes. This is my tick wheel. Unfortunately, I do have to throw a pot for you. This is my kit wheel. European style kit wheel which works beautifully. And I can use it later for the later stage of turning the bases and even decorating. It's wonderful for working on decorating a pot. And say you want to do a bit of banding, and your knife for banding, your hands are free. All this is stuff which are glazed work, which I haven't managed to get into the kiln on the last firing, so we'll be putting it inside. And there's also quite a few fired pots which I think might be improved with the refiring, although it doesn't often work. Yeah, I'll just show you a few flower pots outside. To my assistant manager, anything like this, we work out the shape together to decide whether this is a new little flower pot we're working on. For instance, we had started up, then I thought maybe we'd do a wider rim, and then we thought we'd put little foot supports as well. And so as we go on, then we think maybe we'll do it a bit longer, spot or whatever. So when we was working on the shape all the time, and for instance these little hexagonal dishes for me too. I can do them, but then this releases me for throwing. I'm getting on with other work, and it gives him something interesting to do. And for instance, I get Namigila's wife just to cut these on a template for me. So there's lots of odd little jobs like that which they can do. They live just behind the pottery, so it's nice and convenient for her and for him.